This one's a bit personal for me. So, I never mentioned this before, but my personal history with the Mega Man franchise has been a bit weird. I grew up in the 2000s, but my brothers and sisters were all much older than me and were raised from the mid-80s to the late 90s, so I had plenty of exposure to old school games and consoles. One of those consoles was indeed the NES, albeit rather briefly, and while I did get to play some games like the original Super Mario Bros., Rampage, and Gyromite, even though I didn't have a ROB, I never actually got to experience the classic series on the NES. No, my first exposure to the franchise was with Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo, and I was like 4 at the time when I first played it. When I was 7, I got a PlayStation, and later on, my parents got me a bunch of games for it, all of which I have today, including Mega Man 8. I wasn't very good at it, but I actually learned a lot of its gimmicks early on, and I eventually was able to beat all of the Robot Masters and their stages on my own, though I could never get past that. So yeah, this one's a game I've had personal childhood experience with. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna put on the rose-tinted glasses and go easy on it. Let's get right into the game, and we'll see how good it really is. So, first thing to note is that the game actually has an opening that's in an anime style. There will be several of these anime-style cutscenes throughout the game, and they're actually really well animated. These were all done by Zebic, an animation studio run by Production IG. Zebic is responsible for several other anime, one of which being Mega Man NT Warrior, but they're also known for working on things like Love Hina, the 14th Pokemon movie, and probably their most famous work, Shaman King. Shaman King! Yes, I had to include that reference, I'm sorry. They even worked on the anime cutscenes for Mega Man X4, as well as the anime cutscenes for Maverick Hunter X later on, which is a remake of Mega Man X on the PSP. The opening animation is pretty cool, but that might just be with how many references to past games they have, including showing off previous Robot Masters from throughout the series. Anyway, when we actually start the game, we see 2 robots flying around in space, battling each other, one in a blue aura and one in a purple aura that manifests into a skull sometimes so that you know he's evil. The 2 beings clash with each other, and their contact somehow destroys a part of Jupiter or Saturn or something before they begin hurtling through space towards another planet, Earth. Meanwhile, on Earth...
Mega Man, today we finish this!
Oh. Right. This game was released back in the days of early voice acting in video games. Back when the English voice acting was really bad. Yeah, PlayStation games were known for really bad voice acting, and while every so often you got a Metal Gear Solid, you'd more often than not get a Symphony of the Night.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
Or a Resident Evil.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
Or a Mega Man 8.
Hey, Zach! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Oh, good lord, the voice acting in this game is bad. Like, it's bordering on so bad it's good, but it's mostly just bad. There are only, 2 major characters with voice acting in this entire game that don't sound absolutely horrible. One of those characters is Roll, and even she's more just meh than bad, though she can be rather bad.
Mega Man, hurry! You must come with me!
Like, when the characters have short voice clips, they're fine, but when they need to give dialogue, it's... no. Worst of all might be Dr. Light, or should I say Dr. Elmer Fudd.
Something this powerful must not fall into the hands of evil.
We don't know who he is, and it's dangerous to leave him alone. We may be able to locate another energy emission from the radar room. When we find that meteor, we'll find Doctah Wahwee.
The reason why this voice acting in this game is so bad is because Capcom decided to save money with the voice acting by hiring Americans who all lived in Japan who spoke both English and Japanese in order to do the voice acting. There are only about 7 people who provided voice acting, and so a lot of them will voice some of the Robot Masters we'll fight. Also, some of these would re-voice characters in Mega Man X4, and yes, that includes Zero's voice actor in that game. I honestly would have just redubbed these for the video, but I figured that these needed to be heard for yourself, because otherwise, you might not know what I mean. Anyway, the first cutscene basically says that Mega Man has to go to this island because a meteor crashed there. Once we get to the island, we can start the game. The gameplay of the series has been left mostly the same. This level feels like a better first level than the city was in Mega Man 7 because there's an actual challenge here besides accidentally falling down a cliff. Partway through, Rush comes down and woofs at Mega Man, and while he does sound like a cute dog, it's very clear that's a person doing that voice. Dr. Light says that he somehow can't find the island on any map, which makes no sense considering that the island is literally on a map in the cutscene before this level. But in the meantime, we're given a new weapon/utility in the form of the Mega Ball. The Mega Ball is a soccer ball that Mega Man can create and then kick. It often gets a lot of hate from people, but I actually kinda like it. It is pretty hard to use, but if used effectively, it's very powerful. I'm not saying I did. I mean, I may be good at these games, but I'm not nearly good enough to master this thing. The reason I also set it to utility is that it's also a replacement for the Rush Coil. Yeah, Rush won't be of too much help in this game, which I think is a shame, but he does have his uses later on. There's also a somewhat secret area, and this is where we see some of the new changes to the game. First and foremost is your movement in water. The game now has Mega Man be able to swim in the water, and it's awkward. Every time Mega Man swims, he pushes himself forward and also pushes himself up a little. It feels like they were trying to make swimming controls like in the 2D Mario games, but they overcompensated because Mega Man's a robot and thus made out of metal. This is also the only game in the entire series where Mega Man can swim too, as the next game would go back to just the low gravity of previous Mega Man games. The other thing they changed around is the shop. Instead of enemies dropping screws or screws just being out in the middle of nowhere, you instead have bolts that are in certain areas that are either secret or require a Robot Master weapon, or both. The problem is that they're limited, which means you have to make some tough decisions about what items you want, which I think is a rather dumb change, honestly. Anyway, at the end of the level is Yata Cargo, this weird crab enemy. By hitting it with the Mega Ball, its hitbox for damaging it opens up, but the Mega Ball also does a decent amount of damage to it. You can also actually fire the standard buster shots and even charge them while you have a weapon equipped as long as you use the secondary attack button, which is pretty neat. Afterwards, Mega Man encounters Doctah Wahwee, who has a weird purple orb being held onto by the Wily capsule. He says that the island was actually his secret base, but that now he doesn't need the island anymore because he found some weird power source. Dr. Wily then flies off and Mega Man is about to go after him, but he sees a robot face down in the crater first. Rush then comes in so Dr. Light can ask what's going on. Mega Man explains the situation, and Light says he'll retrieve the robot while Mega Man goes after Wily. And so we're sent to the level select screen from here, where we see 4 Robot Masters, all of which are actually weak to another on the screen, unlike in 5 for Game Boy or 7. For me, I always start with Tengu Man.
Let's do it!
I'm Tenguman.
I really do like the voice clips the Robot Masters provide. Also, since we're talking about Tengu Man, I should also mention that the PlayStation wasn't the only console that the Mega Man 8 was originally released on. In fact, it was also released on probably the last console some of you would expect, the Sega Saturn. I mean, I know that the Saturn was the console of Sega to Sanshiro, but not only did he not make it to the West, but Sega's only history with classic Mega Man had been a weird remake compilation game for the Genesis, and some game for the Game Gear that I don't think anyone ever played or even cares about. The reason I'm bringing up this other release is because there are some notable differences that are in the game, albeit somewhat minor. One of those differences is with Tengu Man's stage, which has a different song for it entirely. I personally prefer the PlayStation version song, but I'll make a compromise and play the Saturn version of Tengu Man's stage theme in a bit. Tengu Man's stage can be kinda tricky. The entire time there's wind that's pushing you slightly forward, even if you're on the ground. The stage has plenty of bottomless pits, but they're not too difficult to navigate around. There are also 2 sections with this room that forces you to navigate around spike balls while riding in a bubble up to the top. The spikes aren't instant death, but they do hurt a lot. Also, near the halfway mark of the stage, there's a section where you get to ride on Rush Jet. The Rush Jet doesn't have an ammo counter here, but it is an auto-scrolling section. I don't mind it here because there's very few moments where you can get crushed to death, and also because it's really fun. There are these party balls that'll appear that allow Rush, Otto, Beat, and Eddie to help out, whenever you fire your buster or charge it. It's a pretty cool area and reminds me a lot of 2D space shooters. But it doesn't last too long because the game actually splits every Robot Master stage in half with a checkpoint, which for Tengu Man means you lose all of the people who helped you out in the first half when you go into the second half. Said second half has you break into an airship and destroy this laser cannon, which I guess could be considered a mid-boss. Anyway, after that, you go through another bubble maze, and then you're on the home stretch to Tengu Man himself. Whenever you enter the boss room, the boss will not only do an animation like they did in Mega Man 7, but they'll also say a quote too. Tengu Man's voice acting in clips actually made him sound like an anime villain, which I guess makes sense considering his base is apparently in Japan.
Are you worthy of my challenge?
Oh hi, base! Anyway, Tengu Man's boss fight is pretty easy, but he always gave me trouble as a kid because, again, I was bad. He'll stick to flying around in the air and will perform one of 3 attacks. He'll either try to dive at you, send a ball of slashing winds at you called the Kamaitachi, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, or attempt to catch you with Tornado Hold. But since it's easy to avoid these attacks, he wasn't much of a threat to me. Defeating him earns you easily the best weapon in the game, Tornado Hold. It creates a column of wind to damage enemies, and can lift Mega Man up into the air, making it a more effective Rush Coil replacement than the Mega Ball. After him is Clown Man, one of the 3 Robot Masters who got to be a fan entry and was given a basic skeleton for fans to use to make him. Clown Man's stage has a cool secret right at the start of it. If you kick the Mega Ball into the mouth of the gate, you'll actually get an extra life. But this only works one time per visit, so no spamming it. Clown Man's stage has 2 major gimmicks to it. The first is exclusive to the first half of the stage with these trains. You sometimes have to ride them to get to the opposite side, and while doing so, you'll have to deal with this hot air balloon full of toy soldiers that'll drain you of your health. The other is in the last part of the first half, and in some parts of the second half. In the background will be these hammer-wielding guys that will hit a bell every few seconds. Depending on the block you stand on when the bell rings, something will happen. If you stand on the circle, nothing happens. If you stand on the X, you get damaged. Standing on the skull causes you to drop, so of course they have spikes below one of them. And standing on anything else will move you to a different box. There's also the mini-boss, this lion thing called CC Roll that'll spawn enemies for you to deal with while it tries to crush you by landing on you. It can get pretty annoying. Clown Man himself is pretty easy, but he's even easier with his weakness to Tornado Hold. Watch how easy this is.
Yo, geeky. What are you doing? Ouch! Ouch! What have you done to me? What are you doing? Ouch! What have you done to me? Thunder Carnival! Thunder Claw! Ouch! What are you doing? Ouch! Ouch! What have you done to me? What are you doing? Mommy! See you in my dreams.
Yeah, that just happened. Anyway, with Clown Man down, we get the Thunder Claw, one of the more useful abilities in terms of utility. The Thunder Claw does decent damage and has decent range, but the main purpose comes from these little hooks in certain stages, which you can grab onto and swing from. It's pretty fun to do, honestly. Next is Grenade Man, whose stage has these square-shaped explosives. Destroy one, and it'll destroy all of the connected bombs of the same color. In some cases, you want to avoid destroying them, because they'll reveal bottomless pits with sugar runs that hop out. The stage also has a mini-boss, Run, who summons junk around itself like it's using the junk shield. Fortunately, the Tornado Hold gets rid of the junk and damages the thing, so that's pretty neat. Then in the last stretch of this level are these blocks that have Mets running around, except the Mets have flames on their heads. They can light the fuses of these bombs, and it makes getting through rather annoying. After all that is Grenade Man's boss fight. He'll throw around these small bombs, try to run into you, and shoot these flash bombs at you, which you can reflect back with his weakness, the Thunderclaw. At less than half health, he'll destroy the stage you're standing on with a move called Crazy Destroyer, and oh hey look, he's dead. Beating him nets you the Flash Bomb, a powerful explosive with a large range that can even light up dark areas. Finally, we have Frost Man, whose stage has one of the more annoying gimmicks in it. The two halves of the stage end with this snowboarding section. While doing so, this voice shouts at you when you need to jump or slide in order to stay alive.
Jump, jump. Slide, slide.
When I first played, I had no idea how to do this section because I didn't know sliding was even a thing you could do, so I always died after the first slide sign. The first section starts off slow, but speeds up quickly, but the second section makes you go really fast from the start. At the end of the stage is Frostman himself, who seems tough because he's big, but he's really easy. He likes to create ice waves, punch you with an ice punch, or drop ice blocks down on you from above, but the flash bomb takes him out really early. Beating him gets you the ice wave, which creates a ground-based trail of ice. What makes this better than the water wave, however, is that you can start the wave from above, and it'll actually run up walls too, though not on ceilings. After beating the 4 stages, we get a cutscene where Mega Man talks with Dr. Light about the robot, as well as these purple orbs that have been popping out of robots, wondering what they are.
These seems to be energy resources. But I've never seen this type on Earth. I don't know where this energy came from, but cannot let it fall into Doctah Wahwee's hands. You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man.
Nice read there, Jack. Anyway, Mega Man and Dr. Light go into another room, leaving the robot they recovered on his own. Just as it activates. The robot goes over to the computer and finds the energy Mega Man recovered, remembering the purple robot he fought, and destroys it.
He still lives.
I wonder why that guy sounds familiar.
What am I fighting for?
Yeah, those two have the same voice actor. I told you Zero's voice actor was in this game. Anyway, not Zero here, busts out of the building surrounded in a blue energy. Why do robots that Mega Man brings back for Light to repair keep destroying parts of Dr. Light's lab? Anyway, Mega Man and Rush go after the guy as he tears his way through some sort of base. It's a mini-stage where we can use some of the Robot Master weapons to navigate around. At the end, we come across the robot who gets into a fight with Mega Man for some reason. This robot doesn't have a health bar, but he can be dangerous if you're not prepared. He'll attack in one of 2 ways, either slamming himself into walls repeatedly like a meteor, or running over to try and punch you with an explosion. Once you deal enough damage to him, the two stop fighting, but then we hear a familiar tune. Proto Man shows up and stalls long enough for the other robot to escape. He tells Mega Man that Wily's newest fortress is up ahead. How convenient? Anyway, Mega Man and Rush head forward to try and get to the castle, but before they can, a giant robot grabs Mega Man and smashes Rush into some rocks. Also, Dr. Wily's probably got the best voice acting in the game, not that that's saying much.
I'm impressed! I didn't think you'd make it this far, Mega Man! However, I don't have time to deal with you! Say goodnight!
And then Mega Man lets out an ear-bleeding scream as he's electrocuted. All hope seems lost until the robot from before comes in and smashes the arm of the robot and finally tells us his name.
My name is Duo. I was born with the sole purpose.
Can you
to eliminate
speak up?
evil energy from
Your
this
theme
universe.
music is too loud!
My name is Duo. I was born
We
with the
still
sole
can't
purpose
hear
to
you!
eliminate
You're
evil
talking
energy from this
really
universe.
quietly!
My name is Duo.
Oh, for the love of... Here, let's try this!
My name is Duo. I was born with the sole purpose to eliminate the evil energy from this universe.
Ah, there we go. Jeez, why can't this guy be louder when we need him to be? Anyway, Duo's a pretty cool character, and he makes a good showing by destroying half this robot's face, and then just blasting through its chest. In original planning, he was supposed to be a creation of Dr. Cossack, so they clearly remembered that Cossack exists. That would also explain why he has a Nushanka on his head. Anyway, Duo explains what the hell this energy is.
This is what you people call evil energy. Based on my studies so far, the one who obtained the original energy must be a being of complete evil. This type of energy absorbs the evil in a person's mind and then multiplies. Judging by the quick rate of its growth, it'll take over the planet with evil energy in a matter of days. We must stop it!
Duo says that the source of the original evil energy must be in Wily's fortress, but there's a barrier blocking it. Duo says he'll destroy the other sources of evil energy, while Mega Man will destroy the sources of the barrier. At this point, the globe on the select screen will rotate, and we'll see our 4 new Robot Masters. Well, since he's definitely the easiest no questions asked, let's go after Astro Man. Astro Man's stage is divided into 6 sections, 3 in each half. The first sections of each half is an area with what looks to be this game's version of Yoku blocks. Every few seconds, the shape in the background will rotate, which determines if these platforms are there or not. They're not technically Yoku blocks, because they appear all at the same time and disappear all at the same time, plus you can jump through them, but they're pretty similar. The second sections in each half will be large, looping mazes with these buttons you have to press to move these blocks. The tornado hold makes getting through here way easier. The third section of the first half requires you to go through a sinking tower, which is a vertical auto-scroller, and it's pretty easy, while the third section of the second half is fighting Astro Man himself. The fight with Astro Man, or as I like to call him, Mega Man's Mysterio, is pretty easy. He'll sometimes send these little satellites after you, or try to land on you, but his most dangerous attack is his Astro Crush technique. He'll teleport around the room, and then rain down copies of himself that hurt like hell. However, if you move directly under where he last appeared before the attack goes off, you'll be perfectly safe. Defeating him gets you the Astro Crush itself, which is a screen nuke. It's easily the least efficient weapon ever, as it only has 4 shots of it. And it's also the weakness of the most annoying Robot Master in this game. And the one that actually infringes on someone's trademark. Hello, Aquaman. Despite the fact that DC's Aquaman at least looks interesting, this Aquaman is just a living water tank. His stage is a water level that you have to navigate with those annoying swimming controls. In the first section, there are these water currents that try to push you into spikes, and there's stalactites and stalagmites that try to kill you if you go too high or low respectively. It's annoying, but you have to deal with that. On top of that is the mini-boss, Gorone, that will spawn in places that cause you to get hit or will completely corner you, making fighting it without taking damage practically impossible. Jeez, I feel sorry for Roman having to deal with that one. The second section has enemies everywhere, and they like to get in the way of others while also trying to smack you. There's also this long shaft you have to make your way through with bombs or various turret enemies, as well as the new Sniper Joes that will throw grenades, in addition to their usual shtick. Once you're at the bottom, it's pretty straightforward from there to Aquaman. Just go through more water and more annoying enemies before you fight him.
But you can call me handsome guy.
Oh, God, no. Aquaman's a right pain in the ass for a few reasons. 1, you can't even kill him with every shot of the Astro Crush because he still has health left after 4 shots. 2, his water cannon is extremely unpredictable in which way it goes, while his water balloon is extremely easy to dodge. 3, and probably the worst one, after you beat Aquaman, you get the water balloon. Yes, that's really what it's called. It's a blob of water that does pretty much no damage but has a lot of uses of it. Yeah, it's pretty bad. The only use of it is against the next Robot Master on the list, who's actually my personal favorite of the group, Swordman. Swordman's stage is an ancient temple, and the first half actually has you use the 4 weapons you got from the first group of Robot Masters in the game to solve puzzles. You use the tornado hold to connect these 2 switch pieces together, the flash bomb to light up these dark rooms to figure out a password, the ice wave to get past these fire pillars that will kill you instantly, and the thunderclaw to flip these levers to stop these instant death rollers. Then there's the mini-boss fight with this thing, Girna Eye, which is actually pretty easy. Just avoid the fireballs, and then, when it calls for Calgameda, avoid its attacks. I found this to be a pretty easy fight with the flash bomb since it hits repeatedly and is pretty fast. The second half of the stage involves navigating these weird carts over lava and past death spikes, and it's pretty cool. Swordman himself is also pretty cool. You'd think bringing a sword to a Buster fight would be a bad idea, but Swordman does a pretty good job putting up a fight. He'll jump across the room with his dividing strike before using Flame Sword to attack you, spin the upper half of his body to make himself invincible and attack you with Fire Slash, which he compliments you on if you can dodge it.
Fire Slash. Impressive.
And sometimes drop these rocks on you that he actually came out of before the fight. He'll also sometimes put up this pillar of flame that's like a barrier, but the water balloon breaks through that and stops it, so it's pretty handy in that regard, and almost no other. Defeating him gets you the Flame Sword, which is basically a fire elemental version of the Slash Claw, which also gives it some unique abilities. But I hate how Mega Man pronounces it when he gets it. Mega Man, the W in sword is silent. And that's a long O, not a short one. And finally, there's Searchman, who also had a skeleton of him used for the fan designs, just like Clownman and Swordman. He's got 2 heads, and they'll sometimes talk to each other too.
I'm Searchman, okay?
Sure, I guess that's okay with me. Searchman stage is yet another jungle stage with enemies everywhere. It features those hooks that you can use the Thunderclaw on to grapple across, as well as these electrical spike plants that are somehow not instant death that the Flame Sword can't get rid of. You'll especially need the former of those two in the second half of the stage, because there are a lot of jumps you'll need to make. Also, I should mention that this stage also has a mini-boss you can fight in the Saturn version, that being Woodman. You can also fight Cutman as an optional mini-boss of Duo's little mini-stage in the Saturn version as well. Searchman himself is pretty easy. He doesn't like it if you get up and hit him with the Flame Sword, but sometimes he'll hide in these bushes. You can destroy each bush with the Flame Sword, which sometimes shows him and sometimes shows a decoy. There's no way of knowing which one he'll hide in, however, but while he's hiding, you'll want to avoid these reticles, because otherwise he'll hit you with his homing sniper technique. He'll also use his desperation attack, Deadly Swarm, but you can get behind him when he tries to use the attack and prevent him from doing so. Defeating him gets you the last weapon of the group, the homing sniper. I wish this was a better weapon to use than it sounds. The homing sniper will home in on any nearby enemies as long as you hold down the fire button, and releasing it causes the missiles to come out. The problem is that the homing sniper will sometimes even target those that are invincible, or target things multiple times, and will consume 1 weapon energy for each of the missiles it fires, so you can't really utilize this to its most effectiveness. Once you defeat all of the Robot Masters, you can go to Wily Tower to take him on, but before I did that, I made sure to get all of the bolts, and then used them to get some goodies, including both the Energy Balancer, and a new tool called the Energy Saver, which gives you more uses of each weapon. Anyway,
Let's do it!
Wily Tower 1 starts with another rocket sled section like the one in Frostman stage, only it takes quite a long time. That's for the first half. The second half is roughly normal, but that first half is still annoying as hell. Probably even worse, however, is the boss of the stage, a Tetamino, which is this bagworm enemy that stays up way too high for you to hit it with anything other than a ricocheting Mega Ball. Thankfully, this box thing here can give you weapons and health, but I really couldn't get through this stage without using the Rush Bomber. Yeah, remember those mini-bosses we beat? Each of them drops a new feature for Rush, and the Rush Bomber and Rush Medic helped me to get through this fight even though it took a while, with the latter one being especially helpful because there's no E-tanks or W-tanks in this fight. The second stage starts off as a normal stage for its first half, and then the second half involves going on Rush Jet, and from there you fight this jet-like enemy called Bliking. It can only be hit in specific weak spots, and really, the Mega Buster's your best bet with it. But the other helpers you get will all be useful in this situation, since it's not really that difficult to avoid most of its attacks thanks to them. Stage 3 is a normal stage throughout the whole thing, but halfway through, you actually get into a fight with Bass and Treble, who use an evil energy to transform into Super Bass again, just like in the fights in the last game. And at the end, you fight the Green Devil. This thing isn't nearly as annoying as other devil bosses, since it doesn't actually come at you from either side of the screen, so just blast it with the Flash Bomb when you can actually attack it, and you're good to go. The final stage is, of course, a rematch with the Robot Masters, and then after that is a fight with Wily Machine 8. Wily ends up trapping Mega Man and is about to blast him with the machine's cannon, but then Duo comes in at the last second and saves Mega Man before Proto Man takes him to go see Dr. Light. The Wily Machine fight is quite a long one. You can use the Flash Bomb to hit it, and most of its attacks are easy to dodge. After that comes the Wily Capsule, which is thankfully not nearly as bad as it was in the last game. It still has a similar attack in this fight, but thankfully all its attacks are just straight up damage. The tough part about this fight is dodging all of the attacks, especially since its weakness is actually the flame sword, so dodging some of these attacks can be hard since you usually start so close to the thing. Eventually, I beat it, thankfully not getting nearly as angry. We then see a new anime cutscene of Mega Man outside and unconscious on the ground. Duo walks over and scans Mega Man.
This is not good. He's been affected by the evil energy. He will die soon.
Then Duo looks like he's about to karate chop Mega Man, but then he just places his glowing hand on him as he draws out the evil energy, I think. He says that if Mega Man's mind hasn't been completely taken over, he'll be fine. So he starts to read Mega Man's memories, seeing visions of Mega Man saving people from, things. The scenes don't seem to represent any of the games, though this robot kinda looks like Quint. Duo then takes the evil energy that was in Mega Man and destroys it, saying that Mega Man will help the planet survive. And buddy, I've seen that timeline. Trust me, that's not really going to happen. Proto Man comes over to see if Mega Man is okay, but Duo assures him things will be fine. He turns and is about to leave, but he asks Proto Man for a favor. Mega Man then wakes up in Dr. Light's lab, and everyone is happy that Mega Man is okay. Dr. Light mentions to Mega Man that Duo saved him, but then we cut to Mega Man going to find Duo.
Duo is gone.
Proto Man!
Mega Man, I have a message to give you from Duo.
From Duo? What is it?
He said, thank you.
Duo? Me too. Thank you, Duo.
And that's it! That's all there is to this game! Mega Man 8 is a fun game, but it's got several flaws to it. Most of the Robot Masters in the game aren't very interesting, the weapons aren't exactly that great, and the new animated cutscenes, while visually beautiful, sound absolutely horrible. At least in English. A lot of the things specific to this game are just sorta meh, but the gameplay is pretty fun at the very least. Duo is an interesting robot, and they actually had introduced him in a fighting game released before the game called Mega Man 2 The Power Fighters, as an in-game advertisement for Mega Man 8. This game is still fun and worth your time and money. You can find this game along with Mega Man 7, 9, and 10, all as a part of Mega Man Legacy Collection 2, if you're interested, that is. Still, this was the last of the Classic Series games to be released for a while, so join me next time as... What the hell?
Humans of Earth, your time has come. The robot uprising has begun.
Oh, that's not good at all.